Alrighty, welcome. For this Python walkthrough video, we are going to talk about loops. So Python has two main categories of loops. We have the for loop and the while loop. So we will start with an example of the for loop. So for loops are great when the code knows how many times the loop should run. So when we're working with data, we're working with a list of items. The code knows how many items are in that list when it starts. So we will do an example here of having some steps basically counted as, say, a user is walking up a staircase, that kind of thing. So we will loop through steps from 1 to 10. So we'll do a for loop here, and then we're going to create a variable, and we will use the variable called step for this, since that kind of fits our theme of this example. And we're going to say in range, and we are going to hard code the range. A lot of times you'd base this on other information and whatnot, but just for purposes of this example, we'll say 1 and 11. So this loop will run starting at 1, and it will run until we get to 10. It is not actually going to print out 11. So that's just one thing to keep in note when we're setting up a loop like this. So we want to print out the step number. So we'll do something like step, comma, and then our step variable. So we'll just copy that so we don't have any typos there. And then we'll print out something like you are getting higher since we're walking up some stairs. And then we'll, outside of our loop here, print a congrats message, since they've kind of reached the highest point. So we'll say print, and you have reached the top. What of you? And so we'll go ahead and run this. And so you can see we have step 1 through 10. Step 11, the loop has ended. Basically, as soon as it gets to 11, it ends. And so we have 1 to 10 printed out. And then we have our message there at the end. So that's a really simple for loop. So our other main category of loops is the while loop. And while loops we will typically use when the code does not know how many times the loop should run. So i.e. When we're working with user input, because users are very unpredictable. We never know what our users are going to do. So for this one, let's say that we are going to track, like, say, leveling up in a video game. And so our video game would probably be keeping track of the levels in this situation. Maybe we let the user choose what level they want to start on, but for simplicity, we're just going to create a variable here. So we'll call it levels completed, and we're just going to set it equal to 0 for demonstration purposes here at the beginning. So default levels completed to 0. And then we could, if we're allowing for user input here, then that would vary the number of times the loop would run, right? So then we will start our while loop to congratulate user on leveling up. So we'll say while, and then we'll grab our variable here, levels completed, let's say less than 10. And then we will print out message with current level. So we'll say print, and then we'll say you leveled up, and then we'll grab that levels completed variable, print that out as well, and say is your new level. And then we'll again have like a little congratulatory message outside of the loop, so that we are very sure when the loop is done running. So how about you beat the game, Congratulations. And so now we'll run this. We should have a couple of things being printed out. Now we'll have our for loop and our while loop. So we'll go ahead and run this. And I have accidentally, or maybe intentionally, you'll never know, created an infinite loop. So it says you leveled up, 0 is your new level. And this is one of the major pitfalls when we are creating our while loops is it's very easy to end up with an infinite loop. And that's exactly what I have going on here. So I'm going to close out the window there. And so what I need to do, be very careful of when I'm creating my while loops, is making sure that I create what I like to call an off-ramp. We need to have a way to get out of the while loop. In this particular while loop, the condition being tested is levels completed being less than 10. So levels completed starts off at 0 in this example. And so what I need to do is increase the value of levels completed, and I need to do that myself. So what I'll do is before I will increase the value of levels completed. So I will say levels completed equals levels completed plus, I'm just going to go with +1. You could do +2. You could write this in the shorthand as well, but since this is a beginner video, we're just going to keep things as clear as possible and do kind of long way. Levels completed equals levels completed +1. So it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So now let's run this again, now that we've hopefully gotten rid of the infinite loop. So execute this again, and now we have a much better result here. So we have our steps, we have our message. There's no extra spacing in here, so it's kind of all next to each other. And then we have you leveled up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 10. And because of when levels completed is getting incremented, that's why we, even though it's levels completed supposed to run as long as it's less than 10, we do get 10 to print out. And so thinking through that logic is important. In this case, that's how I wanted it to work. If you wanted different results, obviously you would want to do your logic a little bit differently. So that's the basics of for and while loop. I want to do one more example of while loop, and that is instead of counting up, I want to count down. So let's do an example where we're say mimicking the eating of cookies from a cookie jar. So another while loop example, this time let's count down instead of up. And this is another case where we could, we'll create a variable here, we'll say cookies in jar, and we could set this to user input, but I'm just going to hard code it to 5 for simplicity. And then we will variable to track number of cookies in jar, and then we'll go here and we'll do loop to print out cookies. And so here we'll do a while and we'll copy cookies in jar. So while cookies in jar is less than, or actually, well, it's greater than 0 is what I want to do for this one. Then we will take our cookies in jar equals cookies in jar -1. And again, on this one, we could ask for user input instead of subtracting 1. We could ask the user to enter in how many cookies they've eaten. And that would be a way to make this a little more dynamic, but for the purposes of just showing the functionality of the loop. So do a comment here. So reduce the cookie number by 1. And then we will print out the new number of cookies here. So we'll say print, and then get the first one in the right place. You ate a cookie. Easy for me to type. And then we'll say cookies in jar, and then left in jar. And so this time we prints out number of cookies remaining. And this time we will not have an infinite loop because we are changing the value, and because we are going from 5 to 0, we're subtracting 1. The logic in here looks good. And then we'll do another print statement outside of our while, saying something along the lines of no more cookies. The jar is empty. Okay, and let's run this. So we should have a lot of print statements now, or a lot of statements printed out, hopefully, unless we have another infinite loop. There we go. I think I still had the window open. I just wasn't paying attention there. Okay, so we still have our steps. We have our level up, and now we have the cookie part. So we ate a cookie, went down to 4, 3, 2, 1, and then no more cookies left in the jar. Jar is empty. So that gives you kind of an example idea of how you can use loops in the different scenarios there. So while loops are great when you don't know how many times the code needs to run, even though we did hard code our numbers, this would be a great spot for user input to make it a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more realistic, but I wanted to make sure to focus on the important thing, which was the syntax of loops and making sure not to have an infinite while loop. So hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching.